Got hardware or software overwhelm? That's what we're talking about on today's video podcast. Hey there, my name is Cameron, and this is the Motion Science video podcast. I'm so excited to have you with me here today because we are talking about hardware slash software overwhelm. And well, what does that mean? It's really simple. I get asked all the time, what software do I need? What hardware do I need? And I feel like a lot of people get really caught up in those two aspects of motion design when really you should be caught up in how to become better as a motion designer, right? So we kind of, a lot of the motion designers out there, we kind of get stuck in uh, that thing of, well, I can't start being a better motion designer until I have the right hardware in place, or the hardware is slowing me down and I can't be a better motion designer because of that, or vice versa. The software, I don't have the right plugins. So I can't be the best motion designer. If I only had this plugin, then I could be really awesome at motion design. Well, the truth of the matter is that neither one of those are going to stop you from being the best motion designer you can be. They maybe slow you down a little bit, depending hardware more than software, but you don't have to be so caught up in having that right hardware and software before you can be the best motion designer that you can be. So, what I would suggest to you is the first thing you need to do is you need to get really, really clear on what it is that you want to do. Now, I talk about this in a lot of my videos. You have to be very clear on what it is you want to do. What fulfills you creatively as artists? We don't want to do the work that doesn't fulfill us. We only want to do the work that does fulfill us. Now, sometimes the work that doesn't fulfill us may pay some of the bills, and that's okay. It keeps life a little bit more interesting, but ultimately, you want to focus on the work that fulfills you. So you need to get really clear on what type of work you want to do. Okay. Because that's going to play in big time into the software and even the hardware side of things. So if you're a motion designer who's really interested in what most of us, a good majority of us are doing, that's 3D software and pretty much After Effects, right? Now, a lot of us can get by with just using Cinema 4D and After Effects. Blender is a program that's really moving up in the ranks, in my opinion, and a lot of other motion designers' opinion. Blender's not there yet, though, right? Because there's not the technical side. There's not the support side. There is the technical side, but there's not the support side for Blender. So, as a creative studio, I'm not going to come to you and say, you it's okay for you to do all your work in Blender because we don't have someone here at the studio that can take your files and make revisions and things like that. So Blender just isn't um, high enough, in the game yet with motion designers to be a pro application. It's a great application to learn on, but an application like Cinema 4D is one that there's a technical support side to. If I have a problem, I can call up support and say, hey, we're under a deadline. This isn't working. What can we do to fix this problem? Right. So major software packages like Cinema 4D, Maya, um, I don't know, there's a lot of them out there. Houdini, Lightwave. They're going to be more acceptable if you want to learn the 3D side of things. So if you do want to be a 3D artist, you need to look at some of the mainstream 3D software. And once you get that, don't focus on, okay, well, now I have to have X particles or I have to have Octane the renderer. Just get that package and start learning everything you can learn about it, right? You also need to understand some basic principles of what makes a good motion designer, which is understanding motion and animation and understanding the design side of it. So I've talked about in a previous video how important it is that we understand design as well as animation. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out because it's really important that you understand design as well. So once you get that software, like I said, just, play around and have fun. A lot of times creative limitations are what make us create the best work that we can create. So I see like 3D artists, they think they have to get, if they're going to spend all this money to get Cinema 4D, well, all of a sudden they have to also get a third party renderer like Octane, right? And they have to also spend the money on that. And now all of a sudden they're trying to learn two softwares at the same time, right? So just get Cinema 4D. It's got some amazing renderers built into it, and just understand the program, right? I mean, you can also get like a free program like I said, like Blender, and start understanding how you can model and texture and light things. And then some of that knowledge is going to transfer to a program like Cinema 4D, and you can use it there. But don't get so caught up on like, I have to have the best software. I have to have all these plugins for this 3D package. So let's talk about, as a 2D slash 3D artist, it's also important that a lot of us know After Effects. So I would say get the Adobe CC subscription, right? You're going to get that subscription. You're always going to have the newest version of After Effects, which, in my opinion, that's a whole nother thing. After Effects is updated every year. Don't immediately jump to the newest version. Okay. If it comes out in the fall, I'm going to wait 6 months before I update to the newest version of After Effects or Photoshop or Illustrator, because there's a lot of bugs typically in that software when it first comes out that I don't want to deal with. If you're in a middle of a project, and let's say you're a freelancer and you're working on a project, and the new After Effects comes out, or a new plugin inside of After Effects comes out, and you're so excited about the new feature, and you jump on it and you upgrade it, and all of a sudden your project doesn't work. I see it happen all the time, and you're screwed, right? You're stuck. You don't know what to do, because all of a sudden the project you're in the middle of doesn't work. Something about it doesn't work. Or you have to pass that project on to the studio that maybe they hired you, and they don't have the newest version of After Effects. Well, they're going to be upset with you, because why did you jump and upgrade in the middle of a project to have the latest, greatest version of After Effects when you could have just stuck with what was tried and true and got the job done? So again, as a motion designer, After Effects is super important. You also don't need to focus on having all these plugins for After Effects. Okay. It's just like in the 3D world. If you're using After Effects, you don't have to have the particle plugins. You don't have to have the effects plugins, the glow plugins, the animation plugins, the scripts, all of that. There's so many scripts and plugins available to us today. And it's awesome because it makes our job easier with depending on what that task is that we're trying to accomplish. But you're going to learn more about the process of motion design by focusing on the core properties of what you need to get done, the core problem that you're trying to solve. And that's related to just motion design in general, understanding how to make amazing motion design. And then the other half of it is the software, right? So dive in with your project, dive into After Effects, and there's so many plugins inside there. Limit yourself to what's there and make your project. And you're going to be amazed at what you create. And those plugins, those are like the extra like polish on top at the end of the project. My philosophy that I teach in my high-end memberships like Stylecraft, I also teach it in my ProFlows Plus membership, is that you don't always have to have the plugin to make it amazing. You want to get your project 80% there. You want to have that solid design base and that solid animation, and you've got this awesome looking project. And then the last 20% of that project is the effects that you can layer on top to really polish that project off and finish that project. And that's things like glows and chromatic aberrations and distortions and blurs and just subtle details. But you don't have to have all these plugins to do that stuff. So determine where you want to be as a motion designer. Do you want to be focused on 2D, and or is it 2D? Is it motion? Is it design? Is it visual effects? Is it rotoscoping? Is it compositing? Is it more of the 3D side of things where it's animating or texturing? Whatever that is, decide where you want to be creatively, what fulfills you, and then just get a basic package, a basic software package that can help you fulfill that desire, that creative desire that you have. Then you need to focus on it and don't get distracted. Okay. I see it all the time as well, where a motion designer will get like I said, this package, and then they want to add this plugin and this plugin and this plugin. And maybe because it's on sale, they're going to grab this script. Don't do that. Don't distract yourself. Give yourself a set time frame and focus in on what it is in that software that's going to help you get to that better place as a motion designer. Okay. You don't need to be a jack of all trades. You need to be able to get in there and work a piece of software and know the ins and outs of it quickly. Because as you know, as most of you know, motion design can be a very tedious and lengthy process, right? I see on socials and different boards online that, like, here's a project I worked on. It took me 80 hours. I worked on it for, 10 days straight. And here it is. And it's 10 seconds long. Wow. And it's like, it's true though. It takes a lot of time. And when you're adding in these different elements like different plugins and scripts and different softwares, it's going to take even more time because all of a sudden you're trying to learn this program and this program and this program. Okay. So that's my rant on software. Now, on hardware, I'm not Mr. Techie. I know enough to be dangerous, right? And as a 3D artist, I work in Cinema 4D. I wouldn't call myself a 3D artist. I would call myself a motion designer. I'm a generalist. I'm a badass inside of After Effects, and I know enough 3D to be dangerous. Okay. And to be dangerous, that means that I can take a 3D model. I'm really good at lighting it, at animating it. I'm not going to model it. I'm not going to texture it. I'm either going to hire someone else to do that, or I'm going to work with someone else who does that, or I'm going to buy that model on a website. So for me, having a computer hardware that is tailored to a 3D artist isn't as big a deal. Okay. I'm an Apple guy. I work on Macs. If I was working exclusively with Cinema 4D doing high end renders, I'm going to have like the new Mac Pro. Depending on when you're watching this video, it's a very expensive machine. Probably not going to upgrade or pay the extra money for that. Instead, I'm probably going to get like an iMac Pro, right? With all those CPUs and the GPUs. A GPU is very important if you're using like a third party renderer, right? Then you want this amazing GPU plugged into that computer to help render much faster. PCs, you have a lot of different components that you can add to those machines. I would recommend a really good GPU, right? If you're 3D. Now, if you're a 2D artist and you're using After Effects, the biggest important factors are lots of RAM. I'm going to personally use at least 64 gigs of RAM. On a laptop, depending on what that is, sometimes you're not able to get 64 gigs of RAM, at least 32 gigs of RAM. The machine I'm on right now is an iMac 5K. It's got 64 gigs of RAM. The next iMac I buy, I'm not getting the Pro. I'm just getting a souped up iMac because I'm more in After Effects. I'm going to get at least 128 gigs of RAM. Okay. It's also really important to have a very fast clock speed on your CPU. And you want to have that CPU be able to do turbo boosting to increase clock speeds. That's going to help with your rendering, right? Now, unfortunately, at this time, After Effects doesn't utilize multiple CPUs when it comes to rendering, but there are scripts out there. Now, I said like it's not so important to focus on a script or a plugin, but in this case, a rendering script that you can buy on different websites. I'm not going to name them off, but there's a few of them out there. There are scripts that help you take advantage of all the CPUs that your computers may have to help you render in pieces inside of After Effects and compile those pieces into one render. They're going to make your renders a lot quicker. But in terms of an After Effects artist, fast CPU, lots of RAM, right? And there's some other factors as well with like having SSD drives and things like that. But like I said, you don't need to get caught up in that. I've got an Apple MacBook Pro from 2014 with 16 gigs of RAM on it that I still work with every single day in terms of when I'm starting to build out projects and design projects. As some of you may know, I design in After Effects. I don't design in Photoshop and Illustrator. I design style frames. I design all my compositions inside of After Effects. And that's another video in itself. But that MacBook Pro from 2014 with 16 gigs of RAM is still enough to get me going and to get me a good part of the way into my project before I jump onto the iMac here to start doing RAM previews or previews in general and rendering elements out and things like that. So that's what I've got for you today. If you've got hardware and software overwhelm, don't feel like you have to have the best of the best. Limit yourself. When you limit yourself, you're going to find your creativity is going to skyrocket, right? My best work comes out of creative limitations. I love it when a client comes to me and says, "You can't use anything external. Our team doesn't have it. You've got to use the basic After Effects software. And here's your creative limitations on things like typefaces you can use, colors, elements." That's when my best work comes because I have to really think and be creative and it just fulfills me. Okay. And I only get new hardware when my hardware I currently have is dying or I find that it's really, really slowing down. But for the most part, my Apple products last me for years and years and years before I upgrade them. So if you find value in this video blog, I would invite you to check out motionscience.tv. I've got other video blogs posted there. I've got a lot of courses and powerful memberships like Stylecraft and ProFlows Plus. ProFlows Plus is where it's at. I teach a lot of techniques and workflows in that membership, and it's very affordable. So until next time, thanks for watching this video. I'm Cameron, and this is Motion Science.